Alright, so with the amount of new sets that Pokemon is releasing, along with the quality of the sets they are releasing, it is making you wonder, how can you keep up with this hobby? I mean, the quality of the sets at the moment is getting really good. And of course, we have Surging Sparks and we have Prismatic Evolution. And then of course, we've got the new Team Rocket set that's coming out next year. And we've got Master Ball Reverse Hollows coming out in English sets. It's getting really, really interesting. And I think if you are now new in the hobby, you are in one of the most interesting times to be in the hobby, and I think you're in a really good position. I think the amount of quality that's coming your way is amazing. If you were in the hobby in 2023, some of us had to kind of go through a little bit of a dark period. I mean, we did have a few lackluster sets, I suppose, and with seeing some of the quality of the sets, I'm kind of grateful for Shrouded Fable because it has made me save my money a fair bit because I didn't have to go so heavy in it. Though a very common question or a thread that's popping up a lot in my comments, and it's a big question, and people are being like, hey Phil, should I buy this ETB? Or Phil, should I buy this booster box? And all this. And I think the answer to all these questions is, I think it's very important right now with the amount of sets that are coming out, with how expensive the cards are getting at the moment, is that you pace yourself well. Now, the reason why I'm even talking about this is because, believe it or not, I didn't even pre-order Surging Sparks, because what happened was I woke up and I went on my phone, I'm like, oh, I got to search Surging Sparks. I want to buy a booster box of it, right? So I went on and I was like, whoa, Surging Sparks? What's going on here? Usually I can buy this set for far cheaper on pre-orders. Like, everything was getting quite expensive on pre-order. And I was looking at stores that I usually buy from and I'm like, what's going on? The prices are not competitive at all. It's actually selling for far beyond what I've paid for any other set during a pre-order. In fact, the pre-order pricing was a good 20 to 30 Australian dollars more than what I was used to, right? And that actually took me by surprise. Any sets that I previously pre-ordered, I'd always get such a good deal whenever I did that. And Surging Sparks was actually one of the first sets in a very long time that I didn't get that experience. And then I was like, whoa, okay, this is kind of getting crazy. And then I was like, oh wow, should I buy Surging Sparks? And then I was like, ooh, but Prismatic Evolutions is now here as well. Should I buy a fair bit of Prismatic Evolutions? And I kind of was like, whoa, I need to calm down, because like I've already spoken to you about it before, I have gotten myself in stupid positions by over leveraging myself in Pokemon cards, and I could feel that same kind of behavior coming back. But instead of going and buying everything and just being like, oh, I got to load up on this because the FOMO that's around and how many people are hyping these sets up, I kind of took it back. And I think a good piece of advice is you don't need to go the full 9 yards with every cool set that releases. And you know what? It's sometimes okay to miss out on a set. I'm waiting for the next Shrouded Fable, man, because I need to take a little bit of a break. Maybe I open 1 or 2 ETBs and that's it. Because, with Surging Sparks coming out, I'm like, whoa, this set is looking crazy, man. The price of these cards are looking crazy. Oh, but then it's like, whoa, now you got Prismatic Evolutions, which is kind of, arguably taking the wind out of Surging Sparks a bit as well. And I'm kind of thinking, geez, they are getting quite crazy. Now, the release schedule of these cards is also getting, hard to keep up with. And, as a collector, and an investor, you need to know what sets you strategically miss out on. I think a good way to put it is if you were traveling to Australia. So Australia is obviously a massive country. But, if you live in Europe or USA and you said you want to come to Australia, you cannot visit every part of Australia, right? You'd have to be selective of what you choose. Maybe you'd choose the Great Barrier Reef. Maybe you'd see Sydney. Maybe you'd see Melbourne. And then by then you'd be like, geez, it's getting a bit too expensive because Australia is huge. The distance between Sydney and Melbourne is a massive kind of flight. And then along that, the Great Barrier Reef is really far from Melbourne. So you'd have to kind of strategically position your itinerary and how you would travel. Well, the same kind of goes with Pokemon collecting. We are getting everything thrown at us. But sometimes you're going to have to miss Surging Sparks. Prismatic Evolutions is going to come your way. It's probably not the best set. If you were going to miss one, it's probably not the set that you want to miss out on. And then, there's all these things coming up in the hobby. And I think the best way to look at this is you got to be strategic with what you buy. I'm looking here and it's pretty important to know, right? Because look at this in the release schedule. So right now we've got Prismatic Evolutions here. So this is all the TCG kind of sets that have been released, and it is quite hard to keep up. So we've got obviously Prismatic Evolutions coming out January 17th, 2025. And that's obviously going to be probably the most hyped set of 2025, and it's starting the year with a bang. So, it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that. Then we've got Surging Sparks, November 8th, 2024. And of course, that is quite a good set as well. It's hard to deny the quality of Surging Sparks. It's interesting that Prismatic Evolutions got announced before Surging Sparks even came out. Then you had Stellar Crown, which I think Stellar Crown's a really cool set. I think the Bulbasaur and the Squirtle are amazing. I think the Terrapagos is also cool, but then again, it probably isn't competing with Surging Sparks or Prismatic Evolution. And of course, before that, you had Shrouded Fable, which arguably was probably one of the more boring sets of Scarlet and Violet. Then again, I think that was a nice set to take a break on. And then Twilight Masquerade, and of course, you had Temporal Forces, Paldean Fates. You know, these are pretty good sets, but they've also all released this year, and you know, trying to buy all these sets is very hard. So I think it's very important to, you got to make some good decisions, and the decisions are, maybe you don't go for the Pokemon Center ETB, you go for the regular ETB. Or instead, maybe instead of getting, a case, you don't have to buy a case every time a set releases. I think that's kind of crazy, and somehow this new standard's been set that when a set comes out, we're going to buy a case. It's like, dude, that's so much money, man. Like, I very rarely buy a case, man. Like, I've got a daughter, I've got a lot of things in my life. I don't need to compete with anyone and be like, hey, I'm buying this. Geez, man, like, buying a case is a fair bit of a financial investment. And I think that has to be said, right? I love making this content for you guys. I love engaging with so many of you. I get such nice comments, and, I've made such nice discussion points with a lot of you. But at the same time, man, buy one booster box. Do not buy a case. Or buy one booster box to open, one to hold, and then, have your hands dusted with that. You don't need to always go for the case. You don't need to get every single Pokemon Center ETB and have 4 locked away. There has to be some level of where you strategically position what you buy. Because if you're gonna buy a case of every set, you may as well not travel in life. You may as well not buy a home. You may as well not get a nice car. You may as well not have a wedding. You got other things in life that you want to buy. If buying a case every set is ridiculous, and please do not fall into that trap. Sometimes when you go on these forums, everyone's like, I'm buying a case, I'm buying 2 cases. Like, just please, man, like, buy what you can. So I think the biggest position where I'm sitting at here is, you got to be kind of strategic with everything that you purchase, right? So, at the moment, I'm obviously loving Surging Sparks. I think, Prismatic Evolutions is going to knock everyone's socks off. So all these sets are coming out, and it's going to be really cool. But at the same time, I'm not buying a case of all these sets. And I just want to tell my audience that. So, don't ever feel like you have to go buy 6 booster box case, to stay competitive in Pokemon investing. You got to also have those barriers. Those barriers are healthy. You don't want to eat too much. You don't want to overeat. You don't want to overspend. You want to live within your means. So you need to know what you buy. Just like I mentioned, if you were traveling to Australia, you can't see it all. Well, guess what? You can't collect it all either, right? You can't have the Greninja. You can't have the Magikarp. You can't have every sealed booster box. Maybe if you are in a position to do that, go for it. But make sure that you are in the position to do that. So at the same time, I collect what I love, but I'm not also getting myself in crazy kind of positions where I'm just over leveraging myself. And this is the reason why this hobby is amazing, but also this is the reason why this hobby can get a bit of a bad rap. I just saw those videos of people jumping up and down. I think it was in Costco or something, Pokemon 151. People were like jumping all over each other and all this. And I think this is where a bit of integrity goes a long way, and a bit of resistance. Man, I would rather pay 3 times retail price than ever be seen doing something like that. I think when I see that, it makes the hobby get such a bad taste in people's mouths. I think it really damages the hobby in a lot of ways, because the reality is, the reason why I love collecting cards is because it really makes me disassociate with some of the hardship of life. It makes me go into this world where I can collect my cards. I feel like I'm building goals. I feel like I'm achieving something with my cards, and it makes me connect with amazing people who share the same love and passion for Pokemon and TCGs in general. When I see that, it really makes me go, whoa, 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 man, like, we gotta calm down, because that's what gets a reputation in this hobby that can make people be like, oh, you collect Pokemon cards? When you see that, or when you see what happened in the Van Gogh Museum, it really does put a dampener of such an amazing hobby, which I think is one of the best hobbies to be doing. I think it's such a great hobby because you can buy some cards, you can open some product, you can sell some of the stuff you don't like, you keep the stuff that you do like, you meet people, you trade, you go to events. Oh, it's incredible, right? But then there is this side that can get a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people, right? The area where I think that is gonna go, and the reason why where Pokemon is at the moment and the TCG, it's in a really good position. The reason why it's in a good position is the hobby is going to grow really big from this, okay? When you've got quality coming out like this and you've got cards exploding in value, it just gets people interested. You cannot run away from that. It's not that the artworks are just great. I mean, when the price is there, I mean, I hate to be that person, but money does make a lot of people get interested because it's like, whoa, these cards are crazy. You know, the amount of parents that are on my channel that say, hey, my kid just pulled this card. Is it actually this valuable? And the answer is, yeah, it probably is. I mean, if your kid just pulled Greninja, I mean, some of these cards are pretty expensive. And because of that, it does pull in a lot of attention. And it's just going to get bigger. I mean, with the cards in Prismatic Evolution, with some of these Surging Sparks chase cards, it's going to get people talking. It's going to get people interested. It's going to get people engaged. Now, in saying that, I think Pokemon investing is a booming arena at the moment. And while it is enjoyable, and if you do know how to pace yourself, there is a lot of cool positives about this hobby, and it's not all negative. And in fact, I do actually talk about the 4 reasons why Pokemon investing is an amazing hobby, which you can see here. While I did speak about some topics in this video, I do think that there is a lot of value from collecting what you love and enjoying your hobby as a pastime with some sort of financial gain. If you're interested in that video, click that video that's appearing on screen and I'll see you there.